God. I'm so happy that you're here, really finally, because we've been talking about this for such a long time. But
Yes, we have. Yes.
but I feel now it's the perfect timing, it's the right moment. And just again, welcome, Mark. How are you feeling today?
Thank you, Ines. Well, I'm still waking up, but I'm doing fine, and we have been talking about this a long time, and I think it's great that it's finally happening, and I'm really looking forward to having a chance to sit with you as a singer and as a colleague and as a person who has really devoted their life to the more soulful and healing aspects of singing. To just share with you, because I just feel that we are really on the same page about this, and I love sharing and learning. In this world, there's just so much to learn and so much to understand, to experience, and so what a wonderful opportunity for us both.
It is. I can feel it, and it's beautiful. Your words are so touching. And I just love talking with you. It's so inspiring. And of course, we share the same passion, the voice. And yeah. And of course, I read your book, your beautiful book, True Voice. I loved reading your book. It was like, for me, it felt like I'm coming home. I was like, oh my
Wow.
God, he really feels me. He knows my story, like what I mean with voice. And also, of course, I listened to your TED Talk, which I enjoyed a lot. I also did the voice exercises. I followed you. And, it was so touching because you told the story about you being, when you were young, you lost your voice, right?
Yes.
And it took you about 3 years to get your voice back. So my
Multiple.
question is, how did you find your voice in the world? How did you get your voice back? How much time do we have?
Well, I would say, yeah. It was a result of a deep depression, and the first year I just could barely make a sound at all, and I was really just absolutely frozen in myself, and I basically lost all my friends. Because they put up with it for a long time and were encouraging and trying to be helpful, but I was in a very, very desperate state, a state of like deep paralysis, and one of one of the expressions of that was just my voice was just like I had no ability or way of getting out with my voice. So that was the first year. And the second year, it started to gradually come, but still very, very back. And the third year, then I changed. I went from a college to a university, and I eventually met who was later to become my singing teacher, also a good friend, and just this brilliant, brilliant man as a singer and as a teacher. And his name was John DeMerchant.
Mm-hmm.
And as I started singing with John, just the way he worked with people, people just opened up to this wonderful sound that he could pull out of people, and he pulled it out of me, and and just suddenly something started to wake up in me, and to feel that it was okay, and there was a sense of a bit of a homecoming in these sounds. There was, oh, that's who I am. Oh, that's. It was, I would not say, I mean, it was the beginning of a much longer road, but it was a huge beginning, and it set me on a road that I could deal with, that was incredibly helpful to me. And that even then, even though that was, John came out of was an opera baritone and worked, with us as classical singers. Already, though, in the way he approached the voices, that the deep soulful part and the archetypal aspect of the singer was invited into that sound-making discovery and that process. And so I just felt, I felt seen, I felt heard, I felt welcome, and all of the sounds that were coming out of me were I'd never heard before. I said, like, who is that singing? And I had, even as a kid, I had a very good instrument. My mom was a beautiful singer. And I always say, I inherited my mom's voice. And so I always had a good instrument, but I had never experienced anything like that, where there was this huge opening in my voice and in my sound. And there, I suppose the big takeaway for me was, and I would share that with anyone, was you really take that step and learn and risk that opening in your own voice, that there's something that, this word inside of us that seems to come into alignment, that seems to sort of land within itself, center within itself, without doing a special meditation or a special visualization. There's something in the sound that centers us, and that feeling of, oh, here I am, and it's not like all the problems of the world are maybe in that moment solved, or there's challenges, but there's that just general sense of well-being. The level of well-being just goes from here to here, and it tends to stabilize here. There's still up and downs, but that just basic sense of self and feeling comfortable with the self rises automatically as the sound starts to unfold. And I think that's a great message for anyone to hear, even professional singers that have learned maybe a certain kind of technique or feel very comfortable and are actually wonderful singers in a certain kind of genre, but maybe don't know just how overwhelming and just empowering that is to come in contact with the raw beauty of the open, true voice. So that was my first big step. And
so I guess one of your first big step was finding the right teacher, right?
Yeah, I just felt so lucky. I felt so lucky, and I wasn't the only one. There were quite a few people. John eventually retired very quickly after I started studying with him. He was also older, and he retired, I think, the year or afterwards, and he moved to San Francisco. And there was a whole carload of us that moved with him, and we went down and lived then in San Francisco and continued studying with John privately, and that's what I did. And eventually, in my biography, I eventually was at the San Francisco Opera House in the Maryland Opera program, and started singing around the Bay Area. Made my debut in certain kinds of places and opera roles, and giving concerts. And so for me as a kid, I was a farm boy. Well, I wasn't really a farm boy, but I grew up on a farm in a really little town of about 500 people. And so for me, it was a big and absolutely essential step to move into more of a metropolitan and more of an international mentality, and be much more available to what was going on in the culture, and so there was this wonderful aesthetic jump that was taking place, and there was also this wonderful soulful expansion going on as well.
But this jump was after working with the teacher, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, and I wonder how did he open your voice? I mean, what kind of techniques he used, or what was his magic that he knew how to open your voice?
Well, there was another another guy who was very, very controversial. John studied with him as a young man in New York in the 30s, and his name was Douglas Stanley. And Douglas Stanley was a British guy, and he wrote 3 big books about singing. And he basically came along at a time when singing technique was going through a radical shift, a bit away from the Italian bel canto tradition, to a more modern tradition of, began with a Polish superstar tenor of the time, Jean Tereske, who sang most of his career was in the French repertoire at the Paris Opera. And when he retired from singing, he noticed that in his own voice, and this is an important principle also, that his voice started to become actually quite, what he called it, forward or nasal. And he thought that this was like maybe one of the great secrets of singing, was to sort of bring the sound here into this sort of the sinuses and in the nose and so forth, some kind of quality, and it would help to relax the larynx so that the resonant work was happening here and not here. Well, very quickly, this idea caught on, and it replaces sort of the old bel canto idea. There's a head voice and there's a chest voice, and there's an opening process where you then put the two together or mix them, in different forms, different techniques. But this was sort of the basic idea, and but the idea of sort of singing in the Masque, as it was called, Masque, in the Masque, singing here. Really caught on, and there is something about this which is important. In complete singing, it does have this sort of frontal quality to it. Often there was a tremendous sort of neglect of it. There's just this wonderful opening and balance that we need, because this is just one color, and if we focus only on that color, at the expense of all the other stuff that we need to look at and open to, let's say that, this can be quite problematic. And I think it has shown to be quite problematic, and also scientifically it's been shown over and over again that this theory that here the resonance is and that not here has been shown to be not true. But so Douglas Stanley came along in the 20s and the 30s, and he said, no, this is what happens anatomically, organically, when a voice opens. This is what the steps that, we need to take. He was, more of a vocal scientist himself. And he worked out some exercises and some principles and some sounds. And he was a tremendous force I think, for me, as I see it, a much more authentic singing, less manipulated, less technically manipulated here, and that involved more of the complete voice, the whole voice. And by doing so, a lot of the people that came after him that have worked with these principles, they've all reported, like must have been my experience, that it's not only the complete voice that comes out, but there's something in the person itself. The person themselves starts to unfold in all their different aspects, and as the sound of the different colors, and as I say, sometimes the lost children, the lost children of the soul start to come out and show themselves in this color and this color and this range and this note. And these are the sounds that never had a chance to live, as we were kids or as teenagers or what have you. And as the sound, though, finally is allowed to come out, it activates these hidden, unknown parts of the self through the sound. The sound sort of wakes them up. And as they wake up, it's like a two-way street. The sound wakes us up as who we are, and there's something as we wake up in who we are, there's just this natural, joyful tendency, desire to express that, and the voice sort of pulls it out of us, and then as we're there, we want to express it. So it turns into a wonderful cycle of giving and receiving and giving and receiving, that this kind of sound making does for us as people. So, and I mentioned Douglas Stanley also a little because Douglas Stanley, my John used to say he was a great vocal scientist, and he was not necessarily a very nice teacher, and he was a very controversial person, and we would say in those days he was a gadfly. He loved to provoke and maybe not an ideal sort of personality, but as often happens with the genuine genius, as people they're sometimes very, very difficult, and I think Stanley was difficult, but the recognitions that he came upon with the vocal sound are just like this great gift to the world, and so I've used those in my own work with people. Maybe I would conclude the little history part of it with this: is that this whole tradition of learning to open a voice came out of this attempt to really more this aesthetic goal, to be able to stand on stage and to be able to sing an aria or a song without a microphone and have it carry easily to the audience and have this great soulful quality, which it does. And so I say it this way: John, for example, who was a great theater person, used this understanding of how to open a voice in order, and his own gifts as a person, I mean, his own soulfulness, be able to touch and reach people where they are, his ability to see people for who they were, and use that sense to help improve their sound. And my thing is just the same thing, but in reverse. I use all that I've learned about opening voices to get closer to the person, using the sound to be able to reach the person in some essential way, some soulful connecting way. And not necessarily it has a tremendous aesthetic advantage in doing this. But my own personal path has been to use the principles of sound opening to be able to reach, and touch, and recognize a deeper truth in the person making that sound.
So what you're saying is, so in essence, what I'm hearing, what I'm understanding is that you're really work with very archetypal sounds, right?
Absolutely.
To open the voice.
Absolutely.
And I can, because I had the privilege of having a session with you, and we did this archetypal voice sounding. So I can say I really could feel the difference. I could feel the shift in my body, And what you're saying about it's so interesting, because when you start talking about the sound, like for me, I feel like we're calling in, how to say, something sacred, like this Holy Spirit of sound that touches all the hidden aspects of myself, of our soul, that maybe, the sleeping aspect sometimes. And I have this sensation just listening to you. It has this kind of, I don't know, universal language of sound. And in this sound, everything is like kind of memorized. Do I understand?
Yes. Yes, we do work with archetypal sounds. And so, the primal scream, crying, moaning, whimpering, laughing, or just, all the possibilities that we have with the human voice, and not just sounds that are somehow just sounds in themselves, somehow isolated from the person making them, but sounds that always are a direct reflection of the person making them, of the feelings that those sounds are associated and connected with. So that when we make those sounds, we start to touch certain sorts of feelings within us. And as those feelings are touched, the sound, that's when the reverse starts happening. We use the sound to touch those feelings. As the feelings start to come up, the feelings then sit sort of, they're in the driver's seat now, and they sort of are the ones leading the sound and creating the sound. And that's kind of what we want, or that's what I want, is I want this absolute one-to-one connection. And what those feelings are not so important to me. Maybe, we're just mad as hell and there's a lot of anger there. Maybe there's a lot of grief there. Maybe there's just a natural sort of joy that's been covered up. Maybe there's who knows what's going on. But whatever it is, and I suppose that's my work is there's this great welcome. You're welcome. Mm-hmm. There's a big party here, and you're invited. And you're, in fact, not only invited, you're an honored guest at this party. Mm-hmm. And then all of those sounds and those vibrations and those colors in us are what we need, and those are the archetypal sounds.
Do you remember during my session? Did you use specific archetypal sounds with me? Do you remember them?
Well, yes.
Tell me.
Yes, we did, and but it's not something like when I'm in a. Well, sometimes it's this way and sometimes that way, but. When I work with someone, and I think, Enos, we both kind of felt that, I like to connect up with once again, of that sort of soulful presence that people carry in them that we sometimes overlook, particularly when we're singing or, as singing teachers, we don't want to overlook that soulfulness. We a lot of singing teachers will, they're really focused on technique, and they often completely miss the person who's trying to do this technical thing for them. And so I really go from the very, very first step, before we even started making sounds, into this deeper silent connection with other people, with that person who I'm working with. And I would like, when I teach, I don't really want to teach. It's much more fun to learn from each voice that comes, what it is. And so there's this, immediately we're sort of in a room where it has a strong intuitive character, a strong intuitive sort of foundation. And so I always move here or here, depending upon whatever that intuitive feeling brings me, where it leads me. So in that sense, yes, I did know, but on the other hand, I wasn't deliberately going to those archetypal sounds. Mm-hmm. They were coming out of our encounter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you channel them, right? You work intuitively, and you just.
I think that's a good word.
You channel the sounds, and what the sounds I need right now to express.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're beautiful. And, I love it because you see it the same, because I see the voice like a spirit, like the spirit of the voice. It's like a teacher teaching us to what needs to be expressed right now. And I think it's really beautiful how you put it. And, I really enjoyed so much with you because I love the archetypal work anyway. It's amazing. And connecting it with my voice. And we worked so much on my voice archetype, because that's what you mentioned in your books, right? In your book. I'm already I'm predicting the future here. So in your beautiful book, the voice archetypes. And I enjoyed just so much bringing out my inner witch,
Yes.
But in such a fun way, in such a joy. And I could feel this kind of shrill voice. I know how to say in English, but this shrill sound in my voice.
Yes.
And I think it's a thing. We women, we have these problems. We got conditioned we shouldn't sound shrill. How do you say in English?
Yeah, we're not supposed to sound shrill.
How you say shrill in English as well? Okay?
Yeah, we're not supposed to sound shrill.
Because it's kind of penetrant, and you're kind of annoying, and we should be, well, usually like being nice and sweet and lovely, right? And then suddenly there comes this really very shrill sound out of you. And for me, it was so much fun, like in that moment, really giving myself the permission, like, oh my God, finally, the witch can really come out. but it was this kind of inner screaming. Yes. And I feel like so many women, but so many people, we all sense this kind of inner screaming. Sometimes we feel like the world is like we need to scream. It's like, yes. But we don't scream. We, for instance, also work with women. Sometimes I can feel like they really just need to scream and they just don't let it out. So how do you guide people to this point? Because I remember in your book you mentioned screaming as one archetypal sound, right?
Absolutely.
So how do you guide your people to scream in a very healing way? You know what I mean?
I sure do. Well, let me take a word that you just used. You said you had the sense of giving yourself permission. Mm-hmm. To scream, giving yourself permission to make those shrill sounds.
And the difference, sorry for interrupting, the difference was also I felt like screaming with joy. I came from this place of joy. It was not from this place of pain and I hate the world, fuck off you all. Yeah. No, it was really from this joy, here I am, that is me, just listen to me, baby. It was really full of joy.
Yes.
And maybe that's the key, maybe, I think. I don't know. What do you see? What do you think?
I would absolutely, well, thank you for saying that. And I would say, first off, once again, let me start with this word permission, giving ourselves permission. And I always make a joke for the people in my training group. I said, you can't just give permission. You can't just sit there. For example, if you're working with someone like, across my legs now, and here I am. So now I'm sitting at my little keyboard here, my little singing teacher keyboard, and I'm sort of here, in myself, I'm sort of this little shriveled up singing teacher sort of thing. And I say, be free.
I'm just having a deja vu here because I remember all these singing teachers. So true.
Exactly, and I just, it's not enough to give permission. You have to, in some way, in your own person. It's not anything objective about it. It's a very subjective thing. You have to be that permission. You're the living embodiment of that permission. And that's how I feel when I work with people. It's like, come on, let's go there. You and I, let's go there together. Let's do it's a cooperative effort. Mm-hmm. I'm not a singing teacher that tells people always what to do, but I hope that there's a sense of fun and the sense of discovery and the sense of joy of just not judging ourselves and just opening up to whatever sounds and whatever feelings want to come out. Mm-hmm. And so I think part of that is to be across from another person and that they just know, mm-hmm. not just from your words, not from your language, but also from your inner presence, from your own sense of welcoming, mm-hmm. that they get it, that they really feel that it's okay. It's not just okay, it's wanted. We want those sounds. We want all of it. We want all of the good stuff. Let's get down and dirty and where the slime is and where the joy is and where if it's pain, where the pain is, if it's freedom, let's go where the freedom is and let them all out and give them a chance to vibrate, give them a chance to start waking up in the body and waking up in our awareness again and let them live let that joy live. Let that sense of flow really start flowing. And so it's and it's amazing what happens when we allow that. And for example, with screaming, if you take a soprano or even a witch or a Lilith or a mezzo-soprano archetype, and if the voice really is opened up properly, that they're going to have a tremendous high C, high B or B flat, what have you. And as they get to that very, very upper region, like a high C, that high C and a primal scream are almost exactly the same coordination. Mm-hmm. A genuinely open, beautiful high C and a primal scream are almost the exact same coordination here. Mm-hmm. The one has a little more opening around it, and the other is just pure power without necessarily that sort of maybe that roundness around it to make the color as beautiful as it can be. And for me, it's but the essence of it, the power, the energy that we need, the coordination here, the balance here is pretty much exactly the same. Mm-hmm. So, and this is a great discovery, that sometimes in just giving ourselves permission to scream in a certain kind of way, I'm really opening up to it, doesn't make us hoarse. Mm-hmm. But it clears up it clears up the voice, because something is finally, that was always stuck before, is finally released, and all of that clarity starts to come. That crystal shining clarity just starts to come out of the voice, and there's that sense, and maybe you felt that the other day, Enos, that often what people feel is that sense of liberation, the sense of not just opening, but a liberation, and a sense of just, well, like you were saying, that bunch of joy. And
but in that moment, I didn't give myself, not consciously, I didn't give myself the permission. I'm just reflecting, and I remember it's because you exuded this kind of energy, this sense of you're welcome. So I guess that's a very important key here, that the teacher really has this welcoming energy, and really holding that space for you and saying, it's okay, your sound, whatever comes out, I can deal with it. It's okay, it's welcome.
Yes.
And that's why I felt so free with you, and could just be wild, and also be my feminine energy, and just felt safe and just beautiful, because you offered that space. And I remember I also had many singing teachers. I never felt this kind of space. Sometimes I felt some teachers, they had so many vocal issues themselves.
Yes.
And they then asking me to get out of myself, but being inhibited, like tense in their own instrument. Like I couldn't even open up. It was not possible.
Yes.
So what I'm hearing is, one main thing is to support people so they can really open up to their to this sound screaming, archetypal sound screaming, is having the space with a teacher who really exudes this kind of energy. You're welcome. I can hold it. Right?
Yes. Well, thank you for saying that. And yes. And I think that's what it is for me. I'm very often, if you're a singing teacher, you're here, and the student is here. And I've noticed from the very beginning, I've never really felt comfortable with that. And that's why, we started, and I've done that for years, is I just start first with just a sense of silence, and a sense of meeting on a level where there's this Evenbordigkeit. How do we say that in English?
Like Augenhöhe.
Say again?
Like auf Augenhöhe.
Yeah, we're on the same level. No, nobody's up here and nobody's down here. We're at the same level, and we are really going on a cooperative journey. And once again, the objectivity, like in a normal therapeutic session or in a singing lesson, is not gonna help us anymore. You know, if you're in a singing teacher and you say, okay, there's this problem, there's this problem, there's this problem, and we're gonna do this and this and this in order to try to solve your problem. And also in therapeutic sense, obviously there's that sense of diagnosis. There's that step of diagnosis, and then there's the step of the therapy and the different steps that you go through as a therapeutic process. And I don't do it that way. I hear, and then I just take whatever impulses that come out of this encounter, this sort of cooperative coming together that we are experiencing, and usually they're very clear impulses and possibilities that just start to show up, and I just follow those and I offer those for the singer to go with me in this direction. And so I feel much less a teacher, much more a reflecting of an active sort of reflecting energy that's there, and it's for me, once again, I mean, I feel much more, and I try to encourage my students to do the training to think of it that way. You're the learner here. When I work with you, I'm the student. You're the singer, and our teacher, both of your teacher and my teacher in that moment, is your voice.
Mm-hmm.
And what she has to tell us, and all the stories that she would tell, and all the troubles that she's gone through, these amazing successes where she's found a way to continue, to not only survive, but to thrive. And then there's the other part, which, the defeated parts of ourselves, which never really found the way, or never really found the chance, or never really were able to get beyond a certain sorts of points, and all the struggles and all the courage and all the desperation that comes with that. And we're here now. We're in a big, big family of and constellations of identity that finally have a chance to come to the table and to be heard. And that table it's a place where the truth can be told, truth can be heard, the truth can be shared. And also there's that quality of what you're talking about, is as that starts to happen, as that's allowed and really listened to, and we really respect what we're hearing, then we realize that table is not just like, this story and this evidence and what have you, but there's a feast here. I mean, and this tastes really good. I mean, this is some of the finest soul food I know are contained in these kinds of sounds. And once again, we're the honored guests, and we get to have all of this wonderful soul nutrition, and it's direct. It's not secondhand. We're not listening to somebody else do it. We're that singer. We're that person who's, opening up to these wonderful, wonderful qualities. So there's not that objective wall. Well, let me see. Well, let me hear your voice, and let me just write down, make my notes, what your problems are and what you need to do and what's good and what's bad. I don't start there. I start with just this no net. There's no net kind of, also for me, there's no net. And let's just see who we meet along this path and see what they need to tell us. And that's when the miracles start to happen, as far as I'm concerned.
It's so beautiful. And I feel like I have so much to say to what you're saying.
Yes.
But at the same time, I feel like I'm just so fulfilled listening to you. I have nothing more to say. So, you get what I mean? Because my heart is just yes, 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 yes. Thanks for the conversation. Thanks for the interview.
Okay. Well, see ya.
See ya. That was
It was
amazing.
lovely. Thank you.
But yeah, it's so true because, and I can just speak from my experience when I had this beautiful session with you. And I see it the same. Your voice is a teacher teaching us. And with you, I had this space. Like, sometimes I feel like it's so simple, just giving the other person space to express himself, herself, right? Without judgment, without interfering, just saying, I'm holding space, whatever needs to come out, you can express it now. Because we had this certain part where I just did some improvising with my voice.
Yes.
And I really loved it so much because in that moment, it was about me trusting my voice even more. And you, by holding that space, I could connect deeper with the trust in my voice. Am I saying it right?
For me, yeah, you said exactly what it is. Yes, that's what it is.
I think that's the main process. That's in essence what it's all about. That you trust it and that you, like Hingabe, devotion, devote yourself to the process and just let your voice guide you. And I could feel just, for instance, when we worked on the middle passage,
Yeah, the passaggio, whatever. Yes, the passage, whatever we call it. Yeah, the break. We call it the break in English, I think.
I know. Yeah. I just need to show off a little bit with how much I know. So when we worked on that passaggio,
yes.
I mean, it was really the Mittellage. It really helped me to connect deeper with my chest voice, my yes. inner earth, I call it, because there was a certain point, like I really went into this screaming with joy, and suddenly letting go, and I felt like falling into even deeper into the core of my soul. And I wonder how come? How is that so? Why is it when you work so intensively on that mixed passage that suddenly you get so connected with your chest voice, with your inner grounding? How come?
Okay, my experience and my conviction is that when we go into our chest voices, for men, our chest voice is an easy. For most men, it's sort of home base. It's 2/3 of our voice generally. That's very rough percentage there, but it's roughly around 2/3 of our voice, depending whether we're very light tenor or heavy bass. It's different, but I mean it's about 2/3 of our voice, and about 1/3 is head voice or falsetto, whatever you want to call it. That coordination that brings it. That's our more head voice, and so where I'm speaking now is chest voice, obviously. And for women, it's just the reverse. Once again, very, very rough, but I mean, about 2/3 of your vocal sound is in the upper head voice, and about 1/3 is the lower chest voice. And I would say for men and for women this is true, but I think particularly for women, once again, what happens in our chest voice? Well, chest voice for me often carries just tremendous amounts of personal information, personal energy, personal qualities. And it's part of I always say, the I am here energy. I am here and I have a right to be here. Mm-hmm. And also, and this is so important because it is with the voice, it's my right to speak. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily my right to be heard, but it is my right to speak. And whether the environment can hear it or maybe they can't hear it, but it is, this sense of, here I am. I speak, I make the sound, I sing the sound, and in that moment, there's that Daseinsberechtigung. There's that sense of, I have a right to be here. I have a right to be.
Mm-hmm.
And all the qualities that come with particularly with our personality and our individual identities, are really, really strong in our lower. And they connect us with our personal energy, so again, like you were saying, the more earthy qualities. And I just think this is absolutely essential, particularly for women, because very, very often in classical Gesang, singing, teaching, as well in the society itself, the women's voice does not always want to be heard. The society is not always willing to listen to the feminine and the feminine point of view, and they're not always interested. And also in just conventional music, singing teaching, very often there's this idea, and I just find it so unbelievable for someone who's worked with the whole voice the whole time. This really holistic view of the voice, that there are still people, and there are a lot of them in conventional singing teaching and singing, that really believe that the chest voice of the woman's voice is somehow dangerous. But that's my it's me voice, and I have a right to be here, and I have a right to speak energy in my voice, and if that is seen as dangerous, and basically for many, many women, this is trained out of them when they go to a singing teacher. This is trained out of them, and I find this to be a crime. And the voice for some people, is like when I meet them, and I go into the voice, and I'm at a crime scene. I see all this terrible sort of cutting off and denying, and we talked about permission and no permission whatsoever, and how the lower parts of our voice, the personal parts of our voice, have shriveled. In some cases, have completely disappeared, as if they've almost been destroyed. Well, they haven't been destroyed mostly. Mostly we can pull it back and get it, wake it up again, and help it to live again. But still, to see this over so many years of doing this work, just how many women who are gifted musically, beautiful, beautiful voices, have had their voices sort of cut off at the knees, and then expected to sing beautifully. Well, they don't really sing beautifully; they sing prettily, because that's all that's left them. They become nice singers, and they don't really have the depth. And because they don't have the depth, they don't have the reflected liberation in the upper. A genuine liberated upper or top for a women's voice has something really orgasmic. I mean, it's a big explosion of sound and emotion. And as it comes out, there's just that feeling, once again, of joy. There's almost like an ecstasy, like a Kundalini thing is happening for many, many women.
And it's so interesting that you're saying this, for instance, about the Kundalini, because the exercise we did together, and I did this the day after, and I could really feel like just doing this kind of vocal toning with myself, really this energy flow going on in my spine.
Yes.
Really, I really had to stand like aufrecht, like really standing well aligned. I say, with a good posture.
Yes, aligned. Yes.
I have to stand like this, because I can't channel this sound when I'm standing like this. It's not possible.
Yeah.
I have to stand with this and I really felt like so much energy going on there in my back, and it gives me this kind of sensation like I can't escape my own power anymore.
Wow!
Like the sound teaches me exactly where my power is and to stay there. And like it's like without any compromise, you know. The sound is like this kind of archetypal sound, like there's no compromise anymore. This pure energy, raw energy, and for me that's really this Kundalini energy. So it's really fascinating that you mentioned the Kundalini energy.
I couldn't say it better. That's exactly what it is. This is the great promise, the great potential of getting back to our, what I call our true voice. Getting out of the learned, conditioned voice, and it doesn't have to be even. Pardon me.
Sorry. And the other thing I have to mention is because I've been singing since many, many years, and I never had problems using my chest voice. Au contraire.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Yes.
I love, but with your work, for instance, also with my self-toning, I feel now since I'm opening up my heart more and healing more and more, also my inner child, I feel my chest voice gets softer. No? So before I really sang like very firm, how you say the chest voice, like por una cabeza de noble potrillo, like this I sang.
Yes.
And for me now this really feels like a lot of tension going on in my body, and I really have to work very hard, and so it makes sense because maybe in that state when I sang like this I was like, I'm here and I have the right to be here, and I'm mad and I'm angry, and now finally listen to me, maybe because I didn't heal these aspects of mine, maybe. Yeah. And now I feel more it's por una cabeza de noble potrillo. Now it's really softer, like connected with my body, right?
Yes.
And for me, I feel like, is this because I start connecting because you also mentioned in your book that the chest voice is the masculine, our masculine energy, and the head voice is our feminine energy, right? So by connecting these two forces, the chest voice gets softer because it connects more with the feminine aspects of my soul, right?
Yes.
And the head voice becomes more grounded because it gets more the chest voice energy, right?
Absolutely.
Then you have this foundation to really sing high but still be grounded.
Absolutely.
And it's so true when you, for instance, with women, so many times I observe that they love singing in this certain kind of head voice or in this middle passaggio, but their lack of grounding, they lack this kind of grounding foundation.
Yeah.
And so it really makes sense. And they then also have this, I feel like they're avoiding the chest voice. When I say I go deeper into your voice with your chest voice, I would also love to hear more of that sound of you. They're like, no, I feel comfortable there. I don't want to go here. So how do you deal with this? How do you guide women in that area?
Well, first, just let me say, once again, I love the way you describe it, and I think there is, once the lower is open and present, and maybe we use a lot of energy, and maybe at the beginning, the first steps often as we open a voice, that because it does take a lot of energy in these different areas, that often, because it's new to us, we'll often give not quite enough, or sometimes too much, or we'll go back and forth, and sometimes there's a lot of to get that that sometimes we give yeah, exactly. Maybe we give a little more than we need to. That's for me not a problem, because as the voice though starts to integrate that, and once again that beautiful way you were talking about, that power, there's just a tremendous power that's released through vocal sounds, and the way that we get connected to our own energy. And have suddenly this wonderful access to all this energy, that then at a point it starts to just integrate itself, and it doesn't need to show itself. It doesn't need to come out and to prove itself and to all this kind of stuff. It sits there as a totally comfortable, completely understood, accepted, integrated aspect of ourself. It's no longer, like we say, an Ausnahmezustand. It's no longer just an exception to the rule. It is now integrated. It is part of the rule itself, whatever that means. So there's that. And So, I mean, wonderful that you have that. And I know that when we were in your chest voice, I mean, wow. I mean, home base, you know exactly where you are there and who you are there. And what I would say for women that are not comfortable, because there's whatever it is, and let's use this example with women with chest voice. That's the process. It's just that, because often the parts of the voice that are absolutely necessary for the realization of the person making those sounds are the parts that we ourselves as singers have the most difficulty with. The difficulties that we have with us, the parts of ourselves that, because they weren't acceptable to our environment, are now not acceptable to us and difficult for us. And I always say, you don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me anymore how that I'm too loud, that I'm too this, that I'm too that, to that. I've integrated that. I can tell myself that all now. How I'm not enough and I'm too much here and not whatever. I can do all that myself. I'm a good learner. We're all good learners, and we pick that stuff up. Kids pick that stuff up, and they find a way to react to it. And either to completely just swallow it because they don't have any other possibility that they can see, or they rebel against it, or what have you. Whatever it is, let's take the example of a woman who has trouble with just accepting her own chest voice. This is the part where we become, we accompany people. We become the midwife of the chest voice in this case, or the voice, whatever it is, the midwife of the voice. And we kind of have to accept that there's going to be birth pains, that there's going to be hesitations, that there's going to be fear, there's going to be a lot of self-censorship, there's going to be, it's going to be a little rough. The sound may not be very clear. It may be uncomfortable. They may need to cough a lot. I always say in true voice, I say, coughing is good, but vomiting is better. Because usually when if there's that much denial of my personal power, that I've learned to deny so much of my person, or to learn that my personal power is dangerous, or to learn that my right to speak is not really there, then there's tremendous, on a psychological level, there is tremendous parallels there with my psychological costume and the conditioned voice. I mean, they're really one-to-one. And my voice reflects that psychological twisted.
But can we say that, because that's what I experienced in your session, that by working with my middle voice more, it supported me, connecting with my inner witch, the scream of my inner witch in a joyful, playful way, I could connect deeper with my deepest chest voice.
Yes. Well, that's the way it should be.
So maybe sometimes it's not about just really going directly to working on the chest voice. So it's maybe sometimes we need to start somewhere else to open the door than there. You know what I mean?
Yes, and often I would say that's true for just a lot of singers, but each one experiences that a little differently. That if you find an opening in one place of the voice,
okay.
That if a door opens in this area, that very often doors in other areas will open with it.
Okay, I get it, yeah.
You can't always say that that's the case, but often when one door is open and really open, it becomes
like
very
a domino. The domino. Do you know the domino?
The domino effect, yes, the domino effect. starts to open with it. There's that
I
wonderful
like
story
it.
of Zembrich. There was a great German star soprano back at the beginning of the 20th century. And I remember she was interviewed because basically she was sort of self-taught, or she worked on her voice a lot herself. And there was this wonderful anecdote. She was being interviewed. Madam Zembrich, how did you learn to sing? And she said, well, she said, I love this because I just think there's so much wisdom in this little stuff. She says, I took the best note in my voice and I made all the other notes sound just like it. And there's a wisdom there because, even as we go through the different areas of the voice, of course, the colors are very, very different. But the sense of opening, the sense of that expansive coordination that opens the door just for one note, if you just do that expansive opening and for all of the notes, you notice immediately your voice starts to align by itself. You don't have to control your voice for it to be stable. As you open up to all of it, the voice starts to stabilize of itself. We don't have to manipulate. Another 10 years of singing teaching. We just need to, that word you used before, trust. There's a sense of trust as we open up and it go into this expansiveness. The voice finds its own level by itself. We can leave it alone. And trust it. It'll do it. It'll do it for us. So if we go into one area and we can find an improvement or an opening, that does not happen in isolation. It does tend to, the domino effect, it does tend to move out into other muscle groups and other emotional constellations, identity constellations, and has an effect on all the moving parts, so to speak, of the self. Yes.
So do you recommend us just really focusing on that one sound, that one tone in my voice that really feels very good, and going from there?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I like it. It's a very nice intention, very strong intention. Just starting my vocal exercise, like, okay, I'm not today. Maybe I'm in a bad mood. I'm not feeling so good today. Okay, I would just do some vocal toning with myself with this one intention, finding that one sound inside of me where I really feel so good.
Yes.
And then let my voice, from that sound, from that space, really stabilize my whole sound, myself.
Couldn't have said it better. Yes.
I love it.
It goes back to another word that you used a few minutes ago. Ines, it is so unbelievably simple. It's not maybe always easy. Let's say that it's not always easy to confront the self, to say yes to the hidden parts of ourselves, the parts that never had a chance, the part that we feel maybe might even be dangerous. For example, as the witch or the Lilith archetype sometimes has a tremendous conflict with accepting her own power because she might even feel, because her temperament is so fiery and so extreme, that maybe she might hurt other people with her power. If she goes into her power, maybe there's something that dangerous that might happen because she is so foil and flam. She's pure passion.
Yeah, she will be rejected.
Bring her down to her essence.
Rejection.
Yes, and she doesn't want to hurt people, and so often she's holding herself back. I mean, because she feels she might go too far. When she fire on, flame on, who's going to get burned? We don't want to burn. So there's that part of ourselves which is now an integrated part. I always say, we're the prisoner and the jailer at the same time. We're with a person in the jail and with the guards at the same time. We're guarding our own imprisonment, and we're enforcing our own imprisonment at a point. And so we taking these steps into liberation means to get the guard and the prisoner back on the same page, that they're not split.
The voice is the key.
In my work, absolutely. And Ines, I know you're very, very experienced in working with voices and really going for the healing qualities of sound making. I know that we're absolutely on the same page with this. I'm sure you experience this, how there's one part of the voice that wants to, and there's another part of the voice that has been enlisted to make sure that it doesn't happen. So there's this desire here, and then there's this censorship here, self-censorship here. And it's still the same body. It's still the same consciousness, which is split off from itself and is controlling its own, enforcing its own imprisonment. And so we need to get the consciousness back to here and get these elements, working in one direction with each other and not against each other. So that's a beautiful process, and sometimes it's a longer process. Sometimes it's very, very short. I mean, we experience.
But it can be very simple, because I remember in our session some sadness came up. I could feel like here's something opening up with my neck. And I felt this sadness, and you just said, yeah, connect with the sadness and connect with my sounding. And then I just connected and expressed it, and then it was just integrated.
Yes. And it is so simple, isn't it? I mean, it's not always easy to accept maybe that sadness or whatever it is coming up, or being able to learn how to integrate that experience that we have through the sound and integrating it into our life. Maybe there are some in-between steps that need to be taken to move it into that integrated place. Still, and I think that's the magic of the voice, whoever is doing it, if they really are students of the voice and not just passers-ons of a technique that they learned from their teacher, but really students of the voice, that they have that kind of devotional energy to the wonderful voice that's sitting across from them, each and every voice. And every voice is new, and every encounter with a voice is a new lesson for the person who's doing this work. And there's that sense of there's that sense that we're getting into something almost magical with the voice, that the voice immediately, automatically brings us into an intimate relationship with ourselves, and exposes all of the strategies that we have developed consciously and unconsciously to somehow hinder that. And so there's that, so we get a window, it's like a diagnostic window to what's happening, but it's not just a diagnostic tool, the voice as a way to just actually easily, immediately get these parts of ourselves back into motion, get them moving. Like in trauma, we see in trauma very often how people are frozen in certain parts of themselves.
Even energy work, I observe, even energy work is more effective combining it with your own voice than just, in your mind, visualizing, the healing effect and the intention. But when you combine it with your own voice, even, for instance, with my dog, sometimes I put my hand on my dog because he's got some pain, and he doesn't like it so much. It's like, leave me alone. He's spoiled. He doesn't know how to appreciate my healing power. But Okay, but I love you. Okay. But the last time I just combined it with my voice. Just, putting my hand on him
Aha, yes.
and he was like immediately just relaxing, receiving, saying thank you.
Wow.
So I feel like we are in this midst of change, like really still unpacking, still, discovering this amazing power of our voice, the healing effect, the healing work of our voice, and
Yes.
just combining it. But,
Yes.
I wonder what I'm observing sometimes. Now the sun comes, it's getting really very bright here. So I wonder, sometimes I just don't feel like singing. Sometimes I just don't feel like toning. And I know even when I work with people, sometimes they're so stuck in their issues, their challenges. They're like, I don't want to sing. I don't want to sing. And I know this from me too sometimes, for instance, when I do my meditation or when I just relax, and sometimes I feel like, okay, I should use my voice now, but I don't feel like using it. Sometimes I feel like I need to overcome my resistance to activate my voice.
Ah, yeah.
Do you notice, have you ever heard this from other people, or do you experience the same?
Sure I have. Sure I have. I think the more that the voice is connected up with the person,
Hmm.
that the more sensitive our relation and the more sensitive our relationship is to our voice and to our feelings. From day to day, from hour to hour, from moment to moment, that that the voice will start to reflect just where we are more and more precisely. And so I think I would say there's two things going on for me. First off, I wouldn't necessarily call that resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it is sometimes. Sometimes it probably will be. But I would say sometimes it's maybe just there's just that sense of self that says, today it's not about singing. Today is about lying in bed. Today's about food. Today's about calling this person. Today's about just being in a very relaxed space, or space is maybe it's I need to do this today. I don't know, but I don't think. I think that as the voice becomes more and more an intimate part of our self and our own awareness, that it will become a very, very sensitive mirror for what's going on. And so if I have a day where I just don't feel like singing, I would say, okay, well, now I know. So I don't need to sing today. I don't need to sing today. So I just let it go. And that's one aspect. And I think as we go further and further along the path, that will be more and more the case.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is, though, another sometimes a tool that I use with people. I like to use the word discipline because often in discipline, people have, I think, a very, very difficult understanding of discipline. They see it as something that's very strict and they're being forced, or they're forcing themselves to do something, and all these things. I had a teacher once who said, discipline is the place where you rest. And I love this idea that that I make time for myself every day, even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes, where I devote that 5 or 10 minutes just to myself and to something that's more intimate, that's less busy.
Just 5-10 minutes.
And just here with me, and in my case as a singer, with my voice, very often. Because sometimes there are bigger issues that will want us to not be here with our voices and come out and to learn that, and to learn how good that is, and how much joy there is that doesn't want that. So, the old program wants to break out. And so sometimes if there's an old program that's hindering us and our
that's really powerful. This
then
program,
sometimes discipline of doing a little bit every day anyway,
I love
no matter
it.
how I feel. can sometimes be an effective way to replace
Ooh, I
the
love
old
it.
pattern.
So you're recommending like just at least doing 5 to 10 minutes each day, being with your own voice.
Yeah. And
Beautiful.
make it easy, make it
Make it
fun, make
easy.
it real. You know, if you're having a day where you're just down, then sing the down. If you're having a day where you feel disconnected with yourself, then just sing whatever is disconnecting and let it.
But also, from what I'm understanding, is when I listen to you, is to learn the difference between when does my voice need a break? Because sometimes I feel like when you do really intense voice work, your instrument needs a break to integrate.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So to know the difference between when my instrument really needs a break and when there's this program going on, I don't want to show my voice to the world.
Yeah.
I don't want to, give voice
It's
to
very
myself
individual.
because I'm so hurt, because I'm so hurt, because I'm so sad.
Yes.
And to really know the difference, saying, interesting, because I feel like so many people experience that all the time. Like, I'm so sad, I'm so hurt, nobody cares about what I say, what I think, what I have to share, so I don't want to share my voice anymore. And they give up in a certain way, in that they kind of give themselves up. And so it's getting really emotional because I forgot what I wanted to say. But anyway, so what do you recommend those people when they experience this kind of pain? When they're in this kind of state, there's nothing I have to say, no one listens, I give up, I don't want to give my voice to the world because it doesn't make sense.
Well, thank you, Ines, for sharing it. That's a place that's very real for many of us, and sometimes that's a feeling that comes and goes, and sometimes it's a feeling that really wants to stay a long time.
Mm.
And I would say there is no general answer to that.
Mm.
I would say there's first off there has to be, I think, a great respect for that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly respect maybe for the just the painfulness
Mm-hmm.
of it, and the pain of existence, the pain of life, the pain of getting through life in some way that feels good and fulfilling, and finding a path that is that, and to know that many of us don't find it, or only find just a tiny piece of it, and live with tremendous inner frustration, or tremendous inner desperation, or pains that no one knows about. And this is, these are things that in our experience are very, very present. And how do we deal with those? And I don't think there's one answer. And for example, in my true voice sessions, sometimes I give just tremendous space to whatever feelings are happening, okay, and let them be, and give those feelings a sound.
Mm.
Let a sound be there, and just live with that, and don't try to even expand it. Don't try to open it any further, but just first to connect it up with the voice so that it has a chance to be heard, and let it move a little bit, and let it be. And you're not trying to do any therapy. You're not trying to do any voice work as per se. You're just trying to let them share that with you through their voice, and nothing else. Nothing else. That's enough. And sometimes if you give them that space, you may even find that the absolutely perfect response is no sound. No, there is no sound coming out.
That's also an archetypal sound, the silence, right? You mentioned it in the book.
Yes.
Oh, you see, I read the book. I read it.
Hey!
I did my homework.
Ines, I'm delighted that you read it. That you really
I loved
spent
it.
the time for this to do that.
I mean, I loved it so much.
Okay, so that's one thing, and then there's another thing. It's just like we were talking about, coming closer and closer to our feelings, to our voices, and responding from day to day. Yeah, I want to sing today. No, I don't want to sing today. There's that aspect. And then there is another aspect that has to be, I think we have to look at it, particularly for people like us who do process work, is that certain kinds of feelings the feelings themselves have become our jailers. Certain kinds of feelings have become a habit. They become almost a kind of an addiction. There are true addictions to pain and painful feelings. There are addictions to drama. There are addictions to even processing. You know, there's this phenomenon of the peptides and peptide addiction, you might want to call it, or I like to call it, where, you know, that it happens now not just because something happened to me 40 years ago or 20 years ago or even 10 minutes ago. Well, 10 minutes is too short probably, but it's because now a biochemical process in my body has taken over that and has learned to do that and now wants it and needs it. And those cells in my body want that little peptide hit, and they will go back into the brain. And, you know, if they're not getting their hit, they're not getting their drama hit today, if they're not getting their desperation hit today, if they're not getting their sadness hit, or whatever painful, you know, the negative peptide hit, if they're not getting that, they'll send all of that stuff back into the bloodstream. It goes back into the brain, and then starts all these images and all these feelings will be reproduced, and then the hypothalamus will then start to generate more amino acids, and then the peptides start to come out, and then they get their hit again. The cells get their hit, and they're happy. I mean, we feel like hell, but the cells in the body are feeling good. You know, hey, I'm junkie, and if that's what's going on, I mean, there's different ways to talk about this. Also, the neurological network in the brain, you know, also, you know, likes to travel on, say, streets or connections that are already built. They don't want to build new connections. They want to use the old connections. And the more you use it, the more you need to use it. And, or as I say, you know, the more it itches, the more I scratch. And the more I scratch, the more it itches. And the more it itches, the more I scratch. And this, you know, this is this devil's cycle, you know, that keeps us in hell. And if that's the case, you know, and that sometimes is the case, we need to also be we need to be a little more stern with ourselves. And you know, that sometimes we learn how to set boundaries here outside with this situation and with this person and with these issues. And that's really healthy. We understand how healthy that is. And sometimes we need to set boundaries in ourselves because certain qualities of our feelings that we think are just feelings aren't just feelings. They're the consequence of a very, very intensive biochemical process going on in the body. And sometimes we need to just say, okay, today I'm feeling this. And just going, yeah. But I don't want to be a junkie anymore about this. And, you know, I need to take this and say, okay, this is happening, but I'm going to go here today. This is happening, I'm going to go here today. I'm not going to go into this deep thing today. And I'm stopping it soon enough. I caught it soon enough. I can say, not today, and go to another place. And sometimes I think we need this kind of accompaniment to ourselves too. And using our voice, you know, giving it a voice in that moment it's an amazing tool just to shift the energies in my state. So I've had how many sessions have I had where I sit down with someone and you can feel they're in a really, let's say, bad space. They're in a very bad place. They're exhausted. They can't take it anymore. They're overwhelmed, what have you. And there's part of me that really I'm like this, you know, I'm sitting there with them in this silence. okay, now what do we need to do? What's good to do? What do they need? Should we give that feeling space?
Mm-hmm.
And if it really is a stuck place, then my opinion is don't give that too much space, because it's just reinforcing the habit. It's reinforcing in fact, if it's sometimes it's not a habit, it really is an addiction. You're just reinforcing the addiction. You're just, but sometimes if it's fresh, if it's a feeling that's fresh, then I'll probably give it as much space as I can give it, But if it is just one of those things that just keeps coming up and coming up and coming up, then I will very often move the work into a much more energetic place and allow them to start feeling joy again, feeling their own power again, their own energy. Yeah. And just the joy of that, just the pure pleasure of being alive again, getting out of this awful space. And then afterwards, they don't feel like that they denied anything. They feel so good again. They feel, oh, this is, yeah, I had forgotten, And I think there has to just be a real sensitivity for what's going on. Like, for example, we talked about screaming. And there are people that I like. Screaming is like one of the most liberating things that a person can do with a voice. If, though, a person comes to me with, they're already angry as hell, and they're so angry, and they're angry all the time, and every circumstance they use to show how angry they are and how unjustly they have been treated. And you can see that this anger is not, there's nothing, they've lost the plot, so to speak. The anger has them. The anger has them in their grip. And if you go into a screaming session with them, which they love to do, if I've got a big anger issue going on that's chronic, once again, maybe an addiction. If it's chronic, then they'll just, all they want to do is scream. And my experience is it doesn't bring anything in that case. Yeah, all it does is you once again, you confirm something that they already know to be true in their personal feelings. And so very often I will not go to that place if that's what I feel, but I will go to a much more tender place, a much more a vulnerable place, maybe, probably, with anger issues, often a much sadder place. Exactly. A place where they have no power whatsoever, where they're completely, lost, left, what have you. And that's not an easy place for them to get to. And the anger very often is sometimes covering that vulnerability up. Exactly. Yes. So there's that thing. And just the opposite, if I have the gray mouse that comes in the middle, or the very, who's always going to be trained to be nice and good and, and all this kind of thing. Or sometimes maybe someone who's been really traumatized because somebody was so loud all the time that their voice became smaller and smaller and smaller, growing up. If I have that kind of constellation, what's going on, then I will often invite that person to, let's stand up and let's make some noise, and then we'll go into some maybe very aggressive, very loud, very raw kinds of screaming sounds, just to kind of wake them up. And just once again, you mentioned that word the other day, I call it, this sacred blasphemy, where I go to that point where I go over that boundary of what I learned that was okay or not okay, what was allowed, what was not allowed. That that those sounds that before were not allowed because they were too loud to someone else, now are just exactly what I need to feel my power again. So I will take those people and we'll go to the big place. And let's go sometimes big. It's also about raising your voice, like in front of your father, your mother, absolutely, in a child. Absolutely. Beautiful, Mark. I mean, I feel like we could talk for hours Yeah, I
We will
know.
have to do another interview, I think.
Look
So,
how long well,
but
you
I'm
know,
so inspired. You know what I'm taking with me. Maybe it's also for the listeners very inspiring. It's like just listen to. I got this, received this kind of exercise, sitting with your own voice, sitting with your
say that
own,
again, Ines. Sitting with,
sitting with your own voice each
yes,
day for 5 to 10 minutes.
yes,
And you know, always checking in, what does my voice feels like? Does my voice feel like she wants to make a sound, or she needs to be silent, or is my voice like saying I have nothing to share with the world? You know, connecting deeper with your emotions, do some journaling, sitting with your own voice each day, 5 to 10 minutes. And it doesn't mean that you have to sing all the time in the 5 to 10 minutes. It can be that you just, maybe your voice tells you to be silent, just to sit with her and be silent. Or maybe this feeling comes up like, I have nothing to say to the world, nobody listens to me, I don't want to share my voice with the world. Just sitting with your voice. I think it could be a lovely exercise.
so I would say yes to that. Yes, and
Yeah.
no pressure.
And
But
also asking your voice, hi voice, when you feel like you don't want to sing, you don't want to sound, you don't want to use your voice, just asking your voice, okay, it's fine. Do you need some silence? Did you need some break? Or is it because I'm heard? I have this program going on inside of me that I don't want to share my voice because I feel really heard.
yeah,
Just going, having a dialogue with your own voice, asking her. Maybe
yes.
don't say in English asking her, you say asking it.
Well, I kind of like asking her. I love
Me
that
too.
interpretation. The voice is a her. I feel for me the voice is a feminine energy, no
Yeah, me
question
too.
about
Yeah,
it.
me too.
And so I think her is just perfect.
Okay.
Uh, and
Because I feel the
voice for
same.
me
Yeah.
is not an it. Absolutely, it's a she. And I
Nice.
love to explore this relationship with her. And and once again, as you know, in singing, teaching, we often take that masculine role and we say what's going to happen before it happens. We are the ones who are doing that, and I love it to be once again to reverse that and to learn from her. It's like going to the own soul instead of telling the soul what it needs today, what it needs to do, but to take those 5 or 10 minutes and just listen to your own soul. What is on a soul level? What does your soul need?
Hmm.
And it's a completely different point of view, and you start to open up to inner uh, awareness and feelings, obviously, and then you find out things that feel just so much better, and discover things that are so much better than your plan or your what we need to do. And so there's one part of it. Let's say that we're taking the masculine energy, and we're saying yes, 5 to 10 minutes a day. Ooh, that's
Structure.
sacred. Yes, but inside of that 5 or 10 minutes, let the voice
Hmm.
lead.
Beautiful. I will do this exercise and I'll tell you, keep you posted. Mark, so beautiful. And I feel like we're going to have another conversation another time. There's so much more to explore. But yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been an amazing journey. And I love finishing our beautiful conversation with a question I would like to ask you. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay.
Breathe.
Just
Yes,
imagine.
please. Okay,
Okay,
go
just
for it.
imagine, Mark. Just imagine you are on a beautiful stage in an ancient theater. And since I'm in Greece right now, let's imagine it's a beautiful ancient Greek theater. And you're
Yes.
standing on stage, this beautiful ancient theater. And you feel, it's the last time ever you're going to be on stage. What would you say to us?
Oh, wow. Well, I probably wouldn't say anything. I would probably sing,
Mm,
and I hope that I would touch the space of deep love in me. And from that space, just let the sounds and the melody come as they would like to come, and share that love by singing it and sharing it with those people. And then if that has actually happened, then it's, I think, very easy to leave the stage afterwards, and to not necessarily have to come back.
Oh, beautiful. I can feel it. So, Mark, can you give us the gift? Just do some singing.
Okay. Ibani obana Sanda batiro Imorabasi Simanye manye ma Yemana umimanye Simianiero sonie monani Ye basan Yes,
So beautiful. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Bye-bye.
it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure to have this time with you, Ines. Thank you for asking such good questions, and I would love to do this again with you.
Yes, me too. I'm so touched. Thank you. Bye.